All right, we're live.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining our live stream. We're talking about EB-1A Strong today. So we are just wrapping up our second cohort for EB-1A Strong, and everyone has made really significant progress. I'm very excited to see this next round graduate. The program is 6 weeks long, and we generally go through one criteria for profile building every week. People will, throughout the course, be encouraged to start contacting people, networking, and securing opportunities. And everyone kind of works together and gets motivated together, which is really nice. We've already had some cohort members get opportunities like co-running a conference track for IEEE, publishing a couple of papers in journals. We've had a lot of people focus in on the judge role criterion and get various judge role invitations for major hackathons, some peer review activities. And then we were able to really focus in on membership, and some people are really pushing for top technical memberships in their field. So, we do recommend fellowships and things like that from time to time, but everyone in this group has been trying to really get that kind of position in their field that demonstrates that other people in the field are acknowledging their expertise. So it's been really good so far. We created this program so that people can get some additional guidance and collaboration and motivation on the pathway to EB-1A. This is kind of in contrast to some of the other things that I see out there where we aren't really creating the profile for anybody. We're just giving some advice on what things might look like given their particular field of expertise, and the structure of the criteria. We don't arrange publications in journals. We don't arrange memberships or fellowships. We don't write papers or do anything like that. Everyone really is responsible for their own work, and everyone has a totally unique path and a totally unique case at the end of it. The emphasis for us is really helping people to demonstrate that they've risen to the top of the field. And so we only take people into the course where we think they already have, some kind of reasonable claim to fame, where they've either accomplished something really impressive technically, or they're holding some kind of leadership role, which should be recognized at the top of their field. But they don't have a lot of those criteria and things so that USCIS would check 3 off the list and actually give them the case or the EB-1A approval. So that's what we're doing with EB-1A Strong. If you have questions about it, feel free to chat them. We're happy to answer. Jason, do you have anything to add to this or anything that you want me to comment on here?
Can we talk a bit about some misconceptions that came up that we were able to address? Like, someone thought you needed papers for authorship and only papers. I think some people also said they weren't familiar with the concept of an anchor criterion, and they thought it was like just all the same criteria.
Yeah, definitely. So as far as papers are concerned, I know a lot of the profile building programs kind of focus in on papers. And I think the reason for that is authorship is a really strong criterion to claim. It's pretty easy to win. You don't need a whole lot. You just need to get some papers published. But I think that's the wrong focus. I filed many EB-1As where we never touch authorship as a criterion. And it doesn't actually makes sense for a lot of people to claim authorship on their profile. Some people really hate writing and just don't want to write a single thing, and that is fair, and you do not need to write in order to qualify for EB-1A. So if that's you and you're listening to this, let me just affirm that you should set that aside and not focus on it, and focus on things that can be closer to your strengths. Even among people who do want to claim authorship and they do want to write, there's a misconception that you can only do research papers in research journals, and that's definitely not true either. USCIS more readily accepts research papers in research journals, but you are allowed to publish in professional or trade publications. Interesting insights that you provide about your field or your industry as published in magazines that are widely read in your field can definitely qualify. I'm working with a researcher who has since gone into industry and they have a really good Google Scholar profile, but they're not actively adding to it because now all of their research effort is dedicated to a particular company and the company doesn't research or the company doesn't publish. But he doesn't even really want to publish academic research papers anymore. Instead, they want to go and publish some thought pieces or thought leadership and interesting observations about the field. And that's actually really good. I think that works really well because when you have something interesting to say based on deep technical expertise and background, and you can get other people in the field to read it and pay attention, you are establishing yourself as someone who is admired at the top of their field. And so it works very well for the authorship criterion. I definitely wouldn't recommend focusing solely on authorship. We can answer this question.
How an IT professional with background in a large IT company can make their profile strong for EB-1A, and what's more suitable for IT professional, EB-1A or EB-2NIW?
So either EB-2NIW or EB-1A can be suitable. They're not necessarily automatically suitable. So they both have different areas of focus, where for the EB-2NIW, you need to prove that you are contributing in an area of national importance. For EB-1A, you need to show that you've risen to the top of your field. For IT professionals with large IT companies, you can either take the angle where the work that you're doing at the company is the basis for the case, or you can take the angle that the work you're doing outside of the company is the basis for the case, especially if you're contributing on a volunteer basis to open source, or doing some really important volunteer technical leadership positions at nonprofits or professional organizations or things like that. So there's a couple different pathways you can take there. You do need to claim at least 3 criteria that are strong. Typically, an IT professional will claim 4 or 5. That's my take on it. I'm happy to answer more specific questions if you have any.
Let's do a 10 from Miami. Hi, Amber. Do you foresee EB-1A will move forward for Indian nationals anytime soon? It's been stuck in 2022. Forever, any projections that you foresee?
I really don't think it's going to move forward anytime soon. It should move forward a little bit in October. October is the start of the fiscal year when the government has all of its new allocations out. So I will be really happy if it moves forward significantly, but I'm only expecting maybe a small progression in the dates. EB-1 for India, I think, is going to be pretty persistently backlogged from here on out. And that's just because there are so many Indian nationals stuck in the EB-2 backlog with priority dates from 2014, 15, 16, all at this point who are very senior level. Most of them have 15 and sometimes even 20 years of experience now. A lot of them have solid claims that they've risen to the top of their field. And a lot of them have been waiting for their green card so long that moving up into EB-1A is the only thing that makes sense for them. So they're going to be going for EB-1A. And I think we're going to see even more EB-1A applications from that group than we have in the past. And I know that's really discouraging for people who have gotten their priority dates a little bit later, people who are truly extraordinary, but only got their first priority date, say, in 2023 or 2024. And it might seem unfair, but remember, everyone has to demonstrate their own extraordinary ability. And the fact that people are moving up from EB-2 isn't necessarily a reflection that the category is being diluted. It's merely a function of the quota system that we're in. Like whenever you have quotas and people are able to move up to the next tier in the quota, every incentive is there to do so. You can't really ignore that. So no, I don't expect that it will move forward. I do think that the only long-term solution for Indian nationals is to advocate for a change in the law, and that Congress has to pass. So we'll see what happens there. I'm not really expecting any kind of favorable immigration law to come out of the current Congress. So we are probably going to be waiting another 5 years or so for a law change, but we are like very overdue for a change in the law. The current quotas were set in the early 1990s. That's just a long, long time ago. It's been 30 years. They haven't even been updated. So yeah, that's what we're stuck with. But everyone needs to advocate for a change in the law in order to fix the problem.
Is there any backlog for other countries for EB-1A or EB-2NW?
So China is also persistently backlogged in these categories. Not as much as India, but it can be pretty significant. Where EB2 for China can take 10 years, EB-1A for China can take 3 years or so. China tends to fluctuate a little bit more than India, but they are backlogged. For other countries, there's no backlog in EB-1A. So people who get the EB-1A classification can immediately become permanent residents. For EB-2NW, though, there is a persistent backlog and likely to remain a persistent backlog, where it will probably be 3 to 5 years before they can get their green card if they're just getting the priority date now.
We can also talk about, we can dive deeper into some of the membership positions some people were able to get. I think there's a lot of misunderstandings when it comes to what membership actually means. Everyone equates it with fellowship, whereas
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of different misunderstandings about membership. So some people look at membership and they think that a base level membership to ACM or IEEE will count, and that's definitely not true. It needs to be more than just a paid membership or a professional membership. It needs to be a membership where you have to be invited on the basis of your qualifications, and it needs to be a higher level or more prestigious tier within an organization. So then people take that information and they apply for a bunch of fellowships, thinking that fellowships are really the only way that you can qualify there. And USCIS has kind of made the system this way. They've designed it this way, even if it was unintentional, because they've really emphasized organizational bylaws and the bylaws containing specific language. And fellowships, I think, are the most well-positioned to actually have these kinds of bylaws. So fellowships are an effective strategy for a lot of people, but you don't need to go the fellowship route in order to qualify. And the more fellowships pop up where USCIS sees the same ones over and over and over again at volume, I think the value of them diminishes a little bit. So typically, I do recommend looking at fellowships for a lot of people, but I'm also recommending that they get on some kind of advisory board or technical committee, some kind of group that has real standing in whatever field that they're in. Even if that kind of organization doesn't have formal bylaws that say a very specific line, if you can demonstrate that, like, realistically, you do need top contributions and top qualifications to be a part of that group, it works really well with USCIS. And honestly, it works really well for the final merits of your case as well, even if USCIS never gives you the membership criterion. Like, if you claim 3 or 4 strong criteria and then you throw membership in as the 5th one, and membership doesn't have the bylaws, so maybe USCIS won't approve it, it still looks really good for final merits because objectively it is a position that is highly admired in your particular field. So I really recommend that people look into it. It's part of, I think, a comprehensive profile building strategy. Not everyone does it. Again, I don't claim membership probably in 50% or more of the cases that I file. So it's not a necessity, but it is a powerful mechanism in profile building.
we can also talk about some of the judging opportunities people were able to land.
Yep. So a bunch of hackathons, a bunch of peer reviews, both for conferences and for journals. A lot of people have had good success in both, cold networking, I guess, but also and going back to their universities and asking their professors if there's some way that they can assist the program, or if the professor knows of any organization or journal that needs peer reviewers with their specific expertise. Networking for these kinds of opportunities is not usually about asking what other people or other organizations can do for you. So you're not saying, I need this for EB-1A, can you help me out? It's about going to other people and saying, I have this expertise. Do you think this would be useful to anyone? If there's a good match, people love to have volunteers with good expert profiles. The academic field is desperate for peer reviewers. It's something that academics tend to really hate doing, even though it is definitely an expectation. So anytime they can offload that onto, a new person who's not burnt out, I think it's generally a good thing. Now, you're not going to be a good fit for all of the projects. There are definitely some papers and projects that need academic expertise and review. But if you're straight up about what you are offering and what you're bringing as far as your expertise, having industry review can be really helpful in the academic context. So definitely reach out to your professors and keep in contact with them for those kinds of opportunities. And then also do some cold networking, reach out to other people who have done some of the activities that you want to do. People have been very, very successful with those strategies. And I think almost everyone in our cohort has obtained 1 or 2 judge roles during our 6-week program.
Someone involved in global internet organizations like ICANN, will that count like involving in global internet policy, DNS root systems, or AI policy? How someone can improve their profile?
Yeah, so this is definitely good. Involvement in ICANN can demonstrate that you are engaged in influencing the field at a really high level. It does depend on the type of involvement you have and how much credit you can claim for some of the initiatives that you're working on. But in general, it is good for EB-1A. And then for improving profiles, I would recommend that you buy the video course or just look at some of the YouTube videos on profile building. There's a lot of different things you can do, and you should definitely look at the criteria in the USCIS policy manual so that you can target the criteria that makes sense for your particular field and for your particular situation. All right. I think that this is all for our live stream today. Thank you all for joining. Some good questions here, and I am sorry about the EB-1A backlog. I don't think I have very good news about backlogs just generally. But yeah, hopefully legal change will be due at some point. We'll just have to see how that goes. All right. Thank you, everyone.